Hello and welcome back to the NFL Quick Talk Podcast. As always, you can find the show on Spotify and YouTube. Subscribe and follow on those respective platforms. And today I will be giving you the 5 head coaches, not in any particular order, that need to be fired right away, if not by the end of the season, in order to for their teams that they're stationed at currently to have a chance at competing at a very high level next season. We're going to start those right now. Let's get right into it. And the first head coach we will be looking at is Arthur Smith of the Atlanta Falcons. Now, 2021 was the first year that he started. And if we remember back to that draft, he was already hired by then. If we go back to that draft class of 2021, and we remember back to the pre-draft hype, this people thought that tight end out of the University of Florida, Kyle Pitts, was the most talented tight end to ever declare for the NFL draft. He was beyond talented, great player, elite player at Florida, and he really had the talent. I mean, he was a glorified wide receiver who had the physicality to play tight end. He was basically projected to be what Travis Kelce is nowadays, but even better. And what has Arthur Smith done with him in his currently 3 years as an Atlanta Falcon? Nothing. Arthur Smith has not done anything to help out Kyle Pitts. Anything that Kyle Pitts has done, he has done for himself. He hasn't been schemed up to do anything. He hasn't, had those games where he gets 12 targets, 10 catches for 200 yards and 3 touchdowns. He hasn't had those games. He has games where he gets 4 targets, 3 receptions, and 49 yards, for just as an example. And he never gets schemed up. And also, you go back to their first round pick from 2022, Drake London. Same deal. Same deal. He never gets schemed up. He'll have better games because he's a wide receiver and he's the only one that they got. And let's go even more recent. With this year's draft class, Bijan Robinson, people said that he was more talented than Saquon Barkley was. And that's pretty darn talented coming out of college, because Saquon Barkley was one of the most talented ones to ever do it. And Arthur Smith has done nothing for these players to scheme them up. Their offense should be firing on all cylinders at this point. He's run Desmond Ridder into the ground. Desmond Ridder is not a good quarterback, and that's not because of himself totally, but Arthur Smith has not done anything for him. And let's look, because I think this is a big indicator of how head coaches should be graded, is if they have success building on each other. 1 year, bad year is okay, but is it building? So let's look at what Arthur Smith has done. In 2021, he went 7-10, no playoffs. 2022, 7-10, no playoffs, and that was with one of the easiest schedules in the game. And currently, he is 7-8, and doubtful. Maybe will make a playoff. Probably won't with the way his squad is playing. So I really think in order to get those offensive players to perform at the highest level, they need a bright offensive mind in the building to be head coach. Ron Rivera of the Washington Commanders, and he has always had really, really good rosters. They have had some elite defensive lines in Washington these past couple years, and they drafted really well there. You got players like Montez Sweat in there, Jonathan Allen, and they've got lots of great defensive linemen. They've had really good defenses in general, and they've had really competent offenses in general as well, and really good skill position players on offense. And, they just haven't done too much with it. They haven't ranked top in really any major category, both on offense and on defense, except for, I think, sacks a couple years ago. That's beside the point. And if you look at his tenure in Washington, he started out going 7-9 in 2020. 2021, he went 7-10. He went 8-1 last year, and this year he's 4-11. And everything is just collapsing. So if we're looking at the trajectory that he's going at, it should be a line and then a straight drop off, because he hasn't done anything except get to about 7 or 8 wins, and then this year it's just a complete collapse. Best case scenario for the Commanders is for him to be fired and for Eric Bieniemy, the offensive coordinator, to be elevated to head coach, because he's the only bright spot right now on this team. His play calling has been usually okay, and he's one of the best offensive minds in the league. He should have been a head coach long before, but he should be a head coach now. And, other things with Ron Rivera is that he misuses his timeouts, misuses clock management, and, overall, he just doesn't contribute that much to the team. He says he speaks to the media, he speaks to some players, and that seems to be pretty much it, because he doesn't seem to be doing a whole lot of football right now in the state capital with Washington. So he has to go. Next head coach is Bill Belichick of the New England Patriots. He has been one of the best head coaches for a very, very long time, but he has to know when his time is up, and it has been since Brady left. I'm not getting into the Brady who was more instrumental, Brady or Belichick. I'm not getting into that, but you definitely see a pattern. He was really good with Brady, and now he's not. I'll leave it at that. But just currently, he hasn't drafted well. He has, you have Mac Jones, who's actually a decent quarterback, but he never developed. Guys like Tyquan Thornton, drafted with a very high second round pick. You don't hear too much about him anymore. He was a speed demon at Baylor. And, in-game management, is not very good to a disaster at times. Prepping for games doesn't seem to be they don't seem to be doing a whole lot of that. And overall development, like I said with Mac Jones, not really there, especially with on the defensive side of the ball. They have players, not a whole lot of development that I'm seeing. And also the staff hires, Matt Patricia wasn't that great. Bill O'Brien this year isn't that great. And the collage of offensive coordinators last year was abysmal. And it really reflects on Bill Belichick because he's making all these moves. Both the in-game management stuff and the drafting and the hiring guys, he's doing all of it. He just needs to take a big step back from all of it. He needs to if he used to stay in New England, which I don't think he should, I think New England needs to move on. He needs to get himself an actual general manager to make the business side of things done. He needs to actually get alphas in the room besides himself. What do I mean by that? He needs guys to lead to lead the players on offense and defense. He needs actual offense and defensive coordinators. And he needs guys that are going to help these guys out. So that's what I think about Bill Belichick and what he should do. Now, before I go on to our next coach, if you've liked the video so far, like it, leave a comment on who you think should be fired from their team. If you've agreed with me, if there's another guy that you want fired, let me know in the comments. And also, please consider subscribing. We have a lot of stuff coming out very shortly. All right, the next head coach that we have is Dennis Allen of the New Orleans Saints. He has done absolutely nothing to contribute to his team in the 2 years that he's been here in New Orleans. He had this year, at least, he has a pretty talented offense. Derek Carr is a pretty good quarterback. He's not incredibly mobile, but he has a decent arm. He has Alvin Kamara in the backfield. He has Chris Olave, the first rounder out of Ohio State, catching passes. He has Michael Thomas, a former offensive MVP. I know he's not as good as he was in 2019, but he's still a pretty good pass catcher. Guys like Rashid Shaheed, also, he's really fast, really good wide receiver. And their offense is ranked only the 22nd, which is pretty low on the scale, and it should be much higher. I'm not saying that they needed to be a top 5 offense, but, top 15 offense wins them a couple more games than they're at right now. And, here's one stat that I found very interesting. Dennis Allen is 1-6 against teams over 500. So against actually good teams, he is 1-6. Think of how bad that is. And think of how many bad teams they've played for them to have only played 7 teams that are over 500 over his 2-year stretch. I mean, last year's schedule was incredibly easy. The NFC South is incredibly easy. Last year was just abysmal. And this year is pretty much the same thing. Let's face it. And this team can be so much better if Dennis Allen was gone and they actually got a competent offensive mind in the building, at least a competent. I mean, a good offensive mind would be even better, but, a competent offensive mind would be able to work with these guys. And, the 2 years that he has been in New Orleans, 7-10 last year, 7-8 this year, can't win big games. Even saw that a week or two ago against the Rams. Could have had that game. Very well could have. But, he struggles against good teams, and the Saints are a very well-run, very good organization. They had Sean Payton for all those years. They had Drew Brees for all those years. And they're a team they're a franchise that wants to be winning, and they want to be in the playoffs every year. And they're not going to be doing any playoffs, much less winning in the playoffs, with Dennis Allen. And our last head coach that we will be looking at is Matt Eberflus, head coach of the Chicago Bears, excuse me. And he has had 2 years to be in this program. His first year last year was horrid. He went 3-14. Think of how bad that is with how many games these teams play. They play 17 games for you to only win 3 of them. That is horrid. But, we'll give him the benefit of the doubt for year 1. And year 2 so far has been also a mitigated disaster. He's 5-9 now. And, they're playing the Cardinals as I record, and that's a game that they should win, but you never know with them. And, it's an improvement of sorts, but also it's not an improvement. He has Justin Fields, who was he was an elite quarterback in college, extremely good at Ohio State. Throws 6 touchdowns in his last game in the Sugar Bowl. And he was so good in college. He comes into this team. He's an elite college quarterback, comes in, and he's just kind of regressed every year that he's been in the Bears system. Even this year, he ranks 23rd out of 29 in quarterback rating and 25th out of 29 in passer rating. So he's not doing good at all. Not doing very, Of course, he can still run, but that honestly doesn't do a whole lot to them when he can't pass the ball. And he even has a top 10 wide receiver in DJ Moore on the team. He's not top 10 this year, but in skill he sure is. What he did at Carolina with terrible quarterbacks, if he just got a competent quarterback, he would be amazing. He would be awesome. And this regression falls squarely on Matt Eberflus' shoulders. He can't coach the guy, and he can't scheme anyone to do anything. That's what you're supposed to be doing as a head coach, And the downright embarrassing losses is a killer. Even last week, we saw where he had that Cleveland game in the bag. He had it in the bag, and he choked the game away with his his way too conservative play calling. And, people could just call it luck that Mooney missed that catch in the end zone at the very end, if you know what I'm talking about. But honestly, what got them to that position was the terrible play calling that, excuse me, that led them to have to throw up a Hail Mary at the end. It's just embarrassing, the way they're losing these games. It's not like the NFC North is a really good division either. The Lions are really good, but they have some flaws. The Vikings are on their like fifth or sixth quarterback. I don't know. And the Packers are just trying to stay afloat. They're in NFL purgatory right now. So Matt Eberflus, I really didn't want to put him here because he's only been here for 2 years. But the fact that he just has not won and he has not developed Justin Fields and his stars that he's got are underperforming, and that all falls on his shoulders, so he can't stay here as the Bears head coach. But anyway, thanks for watching. If you liked the video, like, subscribe, follow, do whatever you got to do to stay in touch with the channel, and I'll see you guys in the next one.